You did exactly what people told you to do. You stayed calm. You stayed professional. You ignored it. You thought that made you mature. You thought that made you safe. And that's when things quietly got worse. Not loud, not dramatic, not obvious enough to point at, just different. Meetings you used to be in stopped appearing on your calendar. Decisions were already made by the time you heard about them. You were asked to explain outcomes you never had a say in. No one attacked you. No one insulted you. No one crossed a clear line. And that's exactly why it worked. Because at work, the most damaging moves don't look like conflict. They look like silence. You probably told yourself the same thing most people do. At least I'm being professional. At least I'm not part of the drama. At least I'm doing the right thing. But here's the part no one warned you about. Silence at work is never neutral. Silence is information. When you ignore a toxic dynamic, the system doesn't read your intention. It reads your availability. It reads how much pressure you can absorb without making noise. And you absorb a lot. That's not because you're weak. It's because you're capable. And that's why you were targeted. Toxic people don't look for the weakest person in the room. They look for the most useful one. They look for someone who will keep things running, fix problems quietly, carry responsibility without demanding control. That's you. And when you ignore them, they don't feel threatened. They feel relieved. Because now there's no friction. They don't need to confront you. They don't need to fight you. They don't need to risk exposure. They just need you out of the way. So they don't attack you directly. They reposition you. They stop asking. They stop looping you in early. They stop giving you context. But they don't remove responsibility. They leave that part exactly where it is. That's the trap. Access disappears before accountability does. And once that gap opens, pressure has somewhere to go. Straight to you. You might have noticed this feeling. You're suddenly owning things you didn't decide, explaining results you didn't shape, taking heat for outcomes you couldn't influence. Nothing feels fair, but nothing feels illegal either. That's not an accident. That's how toxic people operate inside systems. They don't need to dominate openly. They just need to redirect blame. And here's something most people misunderstand about toxic people. They're not chaotic. They're not reckless. They're not stupid. They're deeply uncomfortable with feeling insignificant. They need to feel above something, ahead of someone, more important than they really are. But they don't have the competence to earn that position cleanly. So they extract it. They don't rise. They displace. They push uncertainty, risk, and responsibility sideways until it lands on someone who won't explode. That person is usually calm, reasonable, emotionally controlled. That person is you. Your silence doesn't scare them. It reassures them. It tells them, you won't escalate. You won't expose. You'll keep the system stable. And stability is gold to someone who lives in fear of being exposed. This is why ignoring toxic people sometimes makes things worse. Not because ignoring is wrong, but because ignoring without repositioning teaches the wrong lesson. It teaches them exactly how far they can go. Every time you stay quiet and still deliver, the system learns something new about you. You can carry more, so it gives you more pressure, more responsibility, more risk. Not more power, not more voice, just more weight. And at some point, you start asking yourself the wrong question. What did I do wrong? Why does this keep happening to me? Why am I always the one dealing with this? Let's be very clear. This is not happening because you're weak. It's not happening because you're naive. It's not happening because you attract toxic people. It's happening because you stabilize chaos. And systems protect stability, even when it costs you. That's the part no one likes to admit. You weren't punished, you were used. And the most dangerous part? You probably didn't notice it happening. There was no single moment where everything collapsed. No email you could point to. No meeting you could replay. It just got heavier, slowly, quietly, until one day you realize you were standing in the line of fire without armor, accountable without authority, responsible without influence, visible only when something went wrong. That's when ignoring stops feeling mature and starts feeling expensive. And this is where most advice completely fails you. People tell you, just don't react. Just ignore them. Just be the bigger person. They never tell you what happens next. They never tell you that power doesn't move through emotion. It moves through access. They never tell you that silence creates a vacuum, and someone else will always fill it. They never tell you that toxic people don't disappear when ignored. They adapt. They shift tactics. They change stories. They move the game to rooms you're not in. By the time you realize it, the narrative is already set. And no amount of calm professionalism fixes that. So no, this isn't about confronting them. It's not about fighting back. And it's definitely not about becoming aggressive. The real issue isn't behavior, it's position. Ignoring toxic people while staying in the wrong position leaves you exposed. Because disengagement without repositioning isn't protection, it's abandonment of yourself. You can ignore provocation and still stay present. You can stay calm and still stay involved. You can refuse to engage without disappearing. But the moment you remove yourself from the places where meaning is created, decisions are shaped, and narratives are formed, you lose leverage. And leverage is the only thing toxic people respect. You don't need to become louder. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to win arguments. You just need to stop standing where pressure is designed to land. That's not self-help. That's structural awareness. If you've ever ignored a toxic situation at work and felt things quietly get worse, comment, "Seen." You're not imagining it. And if this video put words to something you felt but couldn't explain, this channel is about patterns most people only understand after losing years to them. If you want to see the game before it costs you more, you might want to subscribe. Nothing is wrong with you. Something was moving, and now you can finally see it.